Welcome, everyone, to Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni. We're here to bring you tales as sweet as a glass of sweet tea on a hot summer day. From the rolling hills of Tennessee to the dusty trails of Texas, we've got stories that'll make you tap your boots and clap your hands. On our podcast, we interview amazing country songwriters and singers, sharing stories of love lost and found, of cowboys and outlaws, and of the simple joys of country living. So grab a seat, pour yourself a drink, and get ready to be transported to a world where the stars shine bright and the music never stops. Whether you're a city slicker or a country bumpkin, there's something here for everyone. So sit back, relax, and join us on a journey through the heart of America.
Welcome to Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni, a production of Lone Star Legacy Productions, where we uncover the stories behind country music's legends and insiders. Today, we're honored to introduce Tom Long, former vice president of ASCAP. Tom shares his journey as a country music insider, working alongside icons like Garth Brooks, Brad Paisley, and Alan Jackson. His book, This Guitar Can Talk, offers a captivating look into Nashville's behind-the-scenes world, available now on Amazon. Reflecting on our past episodes, we've had the pleasure of hearing from guests like Jesse and Noah, Fred Conley, Wood Newton, Bernie Nelson, Justin Trevino, Lisa Brokop, and Gail Davies. Each brought their unique perspectives, enriching our understanding of country music. Join us as we continue to explore the heart and soul of country music. Stay tuned for an unforgettable conversation with Tom Long, exclusively here on Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni.
Well, hey, Tom, I thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy.
You're welcome. I'm glad to do it.
Awesome.
Well, I go way back with you, and very, very proud to say that through everything that we've done together, we're still pretty good friends, and you're still my go-to guy when I need questions answered. But it would really be fun, I think, for folks to hear your story, because really a lot of the shows and podcasts are about the artists and the music. But we want to do some things that show the folks behind the scenes that make it all happen, from telling them maybe about your ASCAP years of and what that stands for, and also running a publishing company for Anne Murray, and what a career you've had. So if you don't mind just sharing a little bit of how that all came about, we'd love it.
Okay, I'll see if I can put it in a synopsis here. Yeah, my hero early on in life, I was raised on a chicken farm. We raised 12,000 chickens, and my dad played guitar and mandolin and piano and stuff. He taught me 3 chords and the truth when I was real young on the guitar. But I never would miss the Oz Inherit show, because I was always a big fan of Ricky Nelson. So I started out loving Ricky and his music, and I used to try to pretend I was Ricky Nelson early on. And then through high school, I played a lot of football and things like that, won a lot of awards. Couldn't go to college because my parents couldn't afford it, so I went to work at Lockheed Aircraft out of high school, and then I got drafted in '66 into the Army and went straight to Vietnam, Chinook helicopter outfit on an old World War II aircraft carrier with 33 Boeing Bertha Chinooks. And before we left San Francisco, I went down to a pawn shop one evening, and I found this OK guitar that I bought while I was there, and it was my best friend while I was in Vietnam, because
Oh man,
I started playing it, and one night this colonel heard me in the tent I was living in it in the jungle. He said, "Hey, you sound pretty good." He said, "Would you like to go entertain some of the troops in different parts of Vietnam?" So I said, sure, and I had a buddy of mine from Missouri that he and I were playing together some. So on the weekends, the colonel would fly us on a personal Huey, H model Huey. He'd fly us to different parts of Vietnam, and we'd play songs, and counting flowers on the wall was a big one. Everybody wanted to hear from us everywhere we went. So we got to entertain a lot of the troops. And one day, I always test flew the Hueys when they came back in from being shot up. We'd fix them. And I'd go on the test flights for those things. And then we had a date to play down in Sauk Train. So I had this guy take my place and to the test flight. While we were gone, the Huey crashed and killed everybody on board.
Whoa.
That could have been me, and the Lord had his hand on me the whole time I was over there. And then when I got back, I started going to college at night, Kennesaw State University. Got, of course, it's 2-year college. Then I got a associate degree, went on down to Georgia State University, got a degree in management. Then I went back and got another degree in commercial music. And during that stint with my commercial music, I got an internship at Master Sound Studios in Atlanta, which was the best state-of-the-art recording studio in Georgia. And I was able to work there for a little while. And one of the first persons I worked with there was Isaac Hayes. Isaac and I became really good friends. Blunt and I used to go over to his house and have dinner with him and his wife. And I got to know Bill Lowry because I became vice president of the Atlanta chapter of NARAS, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. And from there, Bill Lowry, who discovered so many artists like Jerry Reed and Ray Stevens, Tommy Rowe, and Billy Joe Roy, Joe South, the Atlanta Rhythm Section. So I was able to work with a lot of those guys during my tenure with Bill Lowry. And
wow.
Yeah, it was quite it was a great time then. And I got to know Governor Zell Miller, who became a real fast friend of mine, and he helped me get the Atlanta Songwriters Association started back in 1978. And so I started taking songwriters to Nashville to do shows. And from those trips, I got to know a lot of people up there, like Buddy Killen, who started Tree Publishing, and Francis Preston, who was the head of BMI, people like that. They used to come down and be all paddles for me. And then one day I got a call from Buddy Killen. He gotten to know me, and he said, well, I'd be interested in coming to work for Tree Publishing, which later on becomes Sony ATV Music.
Uh-huh.
So Bill Lowry said, man, that'd be a great opportunity for you, Tom. So he threw a big party for me, and all the writers we had, the artists came and wrote poems about me, and they gave me a big send-off with a gold necklace with Bill Lowry's logo on it. So I went to work for Tree Publishing in the last part of 1980, and I worked there for 3 years. In 1983, I became the president of the National Songwriters Association. So I got to make a lot of speeches in front of a lot of folks there. One of the people that heard me a lot was Hal David. He was a famous songwriter, and he was the president of ASCAP. So he approached me one time, and he asked me if I would be willing to go to work for ASCAP. And I said, well, let me think about it. And he said that Connie Bradley was getting ready to leave, and he'd like for me to take her spot. So I met with Roger, was the head of our creative department, Roger Sovine. And Red Sovine was his dad, who had a lot of the big hits back in the day. He said, yeah, it'd be a great opportunity for you, Tom. So I went to work for ASCAP in 1984.
Hey, Tom, real quick, tell our listeners what ASCAP is.
ASCAP is the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, and they are one of the PROs, Performing Rights Organizations. There's 3 in America, which is BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated, CSAC, which is the oldest one, which started early back in the 30s to represent gospel music. And all 3 are still in existence. They still compete with each other. So while I worked there, they collect royalties from TV stations, radio stations, to pay the writers performance royalties as well as the publishers. That's what they do. And it's a big source of income, and right now it's probably the biggest source of income for songwriters and publishers because there's no more record sales.
Right.
The mechanicals was the big thing back in Shania Twain's time and Garth Brooks' time. They sold, hundreds. Well, Garth sold over 100 million records. Shania Twain did as well. So if you're a songwriter back in those days and had a song or two on one of those records, you made a lot of money just from mechanicals. But now it's all downloads and streams. You got to have billions of downloads and streams to make any amount of money.
Yeah.
So during my time there at ASCAP, I signed over 800 songwriters. My job was to stay in the clubs every night. 4 nights a week I had to be in clubs to find new talent, new writers. And back then, everybody smoked. And when I come home at night, Belinda made me take all my clothes off on the back porch before I go in the house because that's smell of cigarette smoke. So thank God all that's changed. But anyway, the last thing I did, I got a call one day from a friend of mine. He was a attorney at Stephen Gladstone. He says, Tom, would you be interested in interviewing to go to work for Anne Murray to run her publishing company called Balmer Entertainment? And I said, sure. And so I flew up to Toronto, Canada, and met with her manager, Leonard Rambo. And they picked me up in a limousine and took me out to his office there in Toronto. So I sat there for an hour. I bet I didn't say 3 or 4 sentences, and I just listened to Leonard Rambo talk. And when he got through talking, I said, well, is that it? And he said, well, do you want the job? And I said, well, yeah, if you're offering it to me. And he said, well, you're hired. And I said, okay. And so I flew back to Nashville. I gave him my notice. But my intern back then, he was a sophomore at Belmont College. His name was Brad Paisley.
Wow.
He was working for me. And he came into my office one day, and I had my old FG-180 Yamaha guitar sitting there on the guitar stand, which I'd bought after I came back from Vietnam. And I said, Brad, I said, do you play guitar? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, well, here, play me something. So I handed him the old guitar, and he played me a song. And I said, wow. I said, did you write that? And he said, yeah, I sure did. And I said, man, I said, you sing pretty good, too. And I said, well, let me bring everybody down. I had Connie and the whole staff come in and listen to him, and we started hooking him up with Jerry Bradley, They Cup Rose, places like that. And I said, Brad, I'm getting ready to leave. Ask him. I'm going to work for Anne Murray. I got one job for you before I leave. And he said, what's that? And I said, well, I've got a little over 200 signatures on this guitar by different people. Because during those 10 years, we had #1 parties just about every week. And we had a staff photographer named Alan Mayer. And every time we had Garth in or Alan Jackson in or Clint Black or whoever, I'd always get it. And Reba, we'd always get them to sign my guitar, and we get pictures of it. That's in my book, this on Amazon. It's called This Guitar Can Talk. And it's a book I wrote a few years ago. But after getting all those pictures, later on I did this book. But I told Brad, I said, Brad, I need to get all these signatures off my guitar. Can you do it for me? And he said, well, yeah, I'll try. We're all in the grain of the guitar. It wasn't with a magic marker. So he took a magnifying glass, and over a 3-day period, he was able to recognize every signature on my guitar. And he typed them up, and he put them in alphabetical order. And so I still got that sheet he typed up for me, and it's listed in the back of my book, This Guitar. And so that was, and I told him, I said, Brad, I said, I don't know if you'll ever make it or not. I think you will. And I said, one of these days, I said, you'll get a record deal, and I'll be at your first #1 party, and you will sign my guitar. We'll get a picture of it. You'll be the last person to ever sign it. And that's what happened.
That's neat.
What an incredible story.
Ever feel like you're missing out on the good conversations? The kind that spark curiosity and leave you wanting more? Then gather round the table with Hudson and Joni. Their podcast, Stories Round the Table, brings together fascinating guests for engaging discussions on a range of topics. Dive deep into captivating stories, explore unique perspectives, and get ready to be entertained. Catch up on past episodes, discover upcoming shows, and even grab some exclusive podcast merch, all at storiesroundthetable.hudsonandjoni.com.
Well, I had a lot of other stories, like how I got Lee Greenwood his first #1 record, and when I was at Tree, I'll just back up for a minute here. And also I was able to get John Conley a #1 with Common Man, which I wrote the bridge to it, but I never put my name on the song. But anyway, this is a quick story here. I had a call from Jerry Crutchfield one day, and he ran MCA Music. He says, Tom, he said, there's a song in your catalog I need. Can you make a copy for me? Back then, they were on reel-to-reel. So we had to make it from a reel-to-reel to cassette. So I was making that copy of that song, and I don't remember the title of that particular song, but I went to the bathroom for a minute, and somebody started talking to me, and I forgot, like this morning, I forgot what I was doing. So So I went back in my office, and that song had already was on the cassette, but the one behind it on the reel was halfway finished. So I let it stay on there. And I pulled the lyric on that. I took them both down to Crutchville. And about 2 hours later, Crutch calls me. He says, "Tom," said, "that second song you sent to me," he said, "man," he said, "we're going to record that." I said, "Okay." And it was "Somebody's Gonna Love You," and it was by Ray Fenhoy and Don Cook who wrote the song. And it was his first #1. And I told Lee Greenwood one day, he didn't believe me. I said, "Lee, you had your first #1 record because I stayed in the bathroom too long."
That's a good story too. Like, well, hey, Tom, I know that you were able to be part of Nashville when 16th Avenue was where everything happened, and that there were just those old houses. Like Anne Murray's was just an old house with writers there, where I was honored enough to be signed, thanks to you, and a writer there. And boy, that was when it was really pretty special to be part of Nashville and all that, wasn't it?
Oh, it sure was. Just old houses with people, made into writer rooms. And now they've torn down just about every one of those old houses, building these big high-rise condos that's as ugly as it could be down there now. Yeah, you had Combine Music, where Chris Christoph started out. A lot of the big writers there, they tore that down. And the old tree house that Curly Putnam was a good friend of mine. He wrote Green Green Grass at Home. That's where they started out there. Yeah, when I was at Tree Publishing back in the early 80s, I was able to become friends with people like Hank Cochran, Harlan Howard, Roger Miller. I got to work some with Roger. And those were special days back then, which happens no more. And there was a lot of songs back then that were 100% written by a lot of songwriters. Today, if you look at the credits, you probably got 4 or 5 writers on just about every song.
Right. That's what I've been kind of hogging the time with Tom. Is there anything?
No, you're fine.
Like to add?
Well, you went with Anne Murray a little bit. I guess when I left ASCAP and went to work for Anne Murray. We were in old Jack McFadden's building to start with, who discovered Achy Breaky Heart Guy. But anyway, we bought that old building and remodeled it down there on 17th, which actually was right next to Bob Dole's office, who manages Garth, still manages Garth. He had his publishing company there called Major Bob Music. But I started signing some writers, and the first writer I signed was an old friend of mine named Kim Tribble, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. And then I signed, I loved Joni because I had signed her to the ASCAP when she had her Capitol Records deal. And I sent her a recent picture, I guess, when I signed her. She is back when she said we look so young.
That was just a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah. But I think James Stroud were producing you back then. Is that right, Johnny?
Jimmy Bowen, and then James came on board as well. But Jimmy's the one that signed me.
Yeah, so that's how I knew Johnny. And after I signed Kim, then I signed her, and I got my old buddy Hobo Jim, he wrote a lot of songs with Johnny. Great songs with Johnny. But that's how we got Boundary going, and I ran that for 6 years. We had several #1s, different markets, and unfortunately, Ann sold that company back in 2000. And I went back to work for Sony ATV Music because Donna Healy was the president there, and she had just bought the old Bill Lowry catalog out of Atlanta, where I started out. And she wanted to know if I'd come back and manage that catalog of songs, and I did for 5 years. So it was, I had a great time back before Donna died. She was the head of the Sony ATV Music. And Buddy Killer sold it to Sony back in the late 80s, I think, for about $45 million, which is quite a bit of money back then. But,
yeah, well, it's quite a history, and for newcomers that would somehow, maybe they say, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to be a singer, but I like to write songs, and I'd like to somehow maybe get in the music business because I love music so much. If you got like some little words of advice, I know things have changed a lot, but would you have some words of advice on how folks would go about that?
Well, first of all, as long as you think you got some talent and you got a lot of tenacity to stay at it and not give up. I know I'm working with a band right now called the Flat River Band, and I was at a concert with them on Saturday up at Reinhardt College, North Georgia, and I've got them an appointment to meet with Warner Brothers next month to see if we can maybe get them on board there. But if you're talented and you got the desire and it takes so much money now, it's almost a pay for play now to get any songs played on the radio. But some of these artists that are doing so well start out on their own and write their own music and publish their own music and just try to increase their following fan base. That's what a lot of the labels look at these days. They want to know what your social media is like. They want to know if you got
Right.
200,000 or 300,000 followers, how many followers you got on TikTok, and so it's a whole different world these days. And man, it does take a lot if you're really willing to promote yourself at radio. And it's almost impossible unless you got much money to get on the billboard stations. A lot of people go to the red dirt stations. I guess that's what Olivia's on. She's promoting the
It is.
and it's just a whole different ball game these days. But a lot of people get discovered on TikTok and on American Idol and
YouTube.
Places. A lot of different avenues to go. If you're willing to stick to it, it's a tough game. It really is.
It's tougher more than it used to be, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, back in the old days, they were out scouting for talent. These days you got to go to them and make them believe that you're worthy on being on their label. It's really, really hard. It really is. But if it's something you really want to do and you got a passion for it, and not willing to give up, a lot of people get backers, which really have somebody that's really well off, and all the big corporations is willing to put the money. I like Black River Records, I think, in Nashville, run by Doug Johnson, an old friend of mine. He and I started out together at Lowry, and he's produced a lot of acts. He co-wrote Three Wooden Crosses, Kim Williams, which is a big song. And I guess the only artist they got there still doing really well is Kissy Ballerina.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing well.
Yeah.
Well, she's a good host too. She did a real good job on this CMA video thing the other night. She did a really good job.
Good. Well, you have definitely shared some really cool stuff with our listeners, that's for sure. And if they want to get some of your music or get a copy of your book, you said Amazon for If This Guitar Could Talk, and I personally got a copy of that book, and it's wonderful. So I highly suggest you guys checking that out. But they can also get some of your albums still, can't they, Tom?
Yeah, CD Baby. I've got a gospel album out called His Love, which is 12 of my songs I wrote or co-wrote. And that's there's a picture on the front of the album of me being baptized when I was 11 years old, and it's in an old creek, Proctor Creek here in Ackworth, where I live. And that was 1956 when that picture was taken by my mother with an old Hawkeye Brownie camera.
That's a cool picture. But, have you got anything in closing, or unfortunately, this no time went by way too fast. But
Yeah, I did.
have you got anything you'd like to add into the closing with Tom Long here?
I just want to say, what an amazing career. How long were you with ASCAP as a president?
Oh, I actually wasn't a president. I was a vice president.
Vice president.
Connie Bradley was the president. 10 years from 84 to 94, and I left 94 to go to work for Balmer Entertainment. And Anne Murray was a great, she was a great boss, and she left the salon. Of course, Anne and I are the same age. I'm actually 6 months older than she is, but she was born June the 20th of 45, and she just turned 79 back in June. I guess she'll be 79 this coming June, that's right. But she moved back to Halifax, Nova Scotia. She's from Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. She's got a museum there in Spring Hill. If you're ever in Nova Scotia, go to Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. She's got a big museum there. It's a really neat place to go through.
I bet. Wow.
Well, Tom, thank you so much. Man, I really wish we had more time.
Well, I'm sorry that I was late. I'm sorry I forgot about it.
Yeah.
You know what it is,
Well, none of us are spring chickens anymore, huh?
yeah, that's true. But, we still have a lot of fun. I still keep my fingers in it. I still do a little work for Joni, I do a little work for Olivia, and I got an artist here in Atlanta named Kirk Thomas I work with, and now I'm working with this Flat River band. They're three brothers out of Missouri. Really, really talented guys, and they're at flatriverband.com if you ever want to check them out.
We might have to have them on the show, Tom.
That concludes our fascinating conversation with Tom Long, a true industry veteran whose insights and experiences have enriched the world of country music. We're grateful for his time and for sharing his unique perspective on the music industry. Before we go, we want to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up on our next episode. On October 31st, we'll be sitting down with the acclaimed author and publicist, Deborah Evans Price. Deborah is the author of the best-selling books, Country Faith and Country Faith Christmas, which have been featured in major publications like People Magazine, Billboard, and Country Weekly. Her work has earned her a CMA award for her writing and has solidified her reputation as a leading voice in the country music community. As the co-founder of Country Faith LLC, Deborah is passionate about celebrating the heart and soul of country music through books, CDs, festivals, cruises, and her exclusive line of jewelry. Her personal connection to famous country music artists adds a unique dimension to her insights and experiences. In our interview, we'll delve into her writing process, the inspiration behind her latest work, and her personal reflections on the holiday season. We'll also hear about her unforgettable first interview with country music icon Clint Black at the Fort Worth Stockyards. So, mark your calendars for October 31st and join us for another exciting episode of Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni.
This is a Lone Star Legacy Productions